Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. The final seconds of the year are supposed to glitter, champagne flutes catching the light, laughter spilling into the night, a countdown that promises renewal. For Mark Consuelos, that New Year's Eve began the same way it always had, a familiar hum of anticipation, the glow of city lights reflected in windows, the quiet comfort of standing beside the woman he had loved for decades. But as midnight crept closer, something shifted. A heaviness settled into his chest, the kind that doesn't announce itself loudly, but insists on being felt. Kelly Ripa stood near the window, smiling as friends gathered, her laugh effortless, her presence magnetic. To everyone else, she was the same Kelly, bright, quick-witted, unstoppable. To Mark, she was that and something more, a universe he had orbited since the moment their lives collided. Yet that night, he watched her with an ache he could no longer ignore. The clock ticked closer to 12. Mark had rehearsed the words 100 times in his mind. He had practiced them in the shower, whispered them into the darkness when sleep refused to come. Each rehearsal ended the same way, with his heart pounding and his courage failing him. But something about New Year's Eve felt unavoidable, like a door that would close forever if he didn't step through it now. The room quieted as someone turned down the music. A countdown began, voices blending together in a hopeful chorus. Mark raised his glass, but his hand trembled. Kelly noticed. "Hey," she said softly, leaning toward him. "You okay?" He smiled automatically, the practiced expression he had perfected over years of public appearances. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." She squeezed his hand. That simple gesture, so familiar, so grounding, nearly unraveled him. 10, 9, 8. Mark felt time compress, the past and present folding into each other. He remembered the first time he'd seen her on set, the spark that had startled him. He remembered late-night conversations, shared dreams, and quiet moments that never made headlines. He also remembered the times he had stayed silent when he should have spoken, the moments he chose strength over vulnerability. 3, 2, 1. Cheers erupted, glasses clinked, fireworks bloomed outside, painting the sky in bursts of color. Kelly turned to kiss him, but Mark hesitated. The world seemed to pause in that fraction of a second. "Kelly?" he said, his voice cutting through the celebration. She looked at him, surprised. "What is it?" The room fell into an uneasy hush as friends sensed the shift. Mark set his glass down, his heart racing. "I need to say something I should have said a long time ago." Kelly's smile faded, replaced with concern. "Mark, you're scaring me." He took a breath, feeling the weight of every year they'd shared. "Everyone sees us as this perfect couple, strong, unbreakable, and in so many ways we are. But I haven't been completely honest with you or with myself." A murmur rippled through the room. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Mark pressed on. "I've spent years trying to be the rock, the steady one. I told myself that being strong meant not showing doubt, not admitting fear. But the truth is," his voice cracked, "the truth is, I've been afraid." Kelly stared at him, eyes glistening. "Afraid of what?" "Of failing you," he said, "of not being enough, of losing myself while trying to be everything everyone expects me to be, your husband, your partner, the public face of our life." Silence wrapped around them, thick and heavy. "I watched you shine," Mark said, tears threatening, "and instead of always standing beside you, fully present, I sometimes hid behind my own pride. I convinced myself that holding everything in was the right thing to do, but it created distance, and that's on me." Kelly shook her head slowly, disbelief flickering across her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to burden you, because I thought love meant shielding you from my fears. But love also means honesty, even when it's messy, even when it's scary." The room felt impossibly small. Friends exchanged glances, unsure whether to stay or quietly slip away. Kelly stepped closer to Mark, her voice barely above a whisper. "So this is a confession?"
Yes,
she asked.
he said. "I've been carrying this weight for too long. And tonight, standing here at the edge of a new year, I realized I don't want to carry it into tomorrow. I want to start fresh, with the truth." Kelly's eyes brimmed with tears. "You think I don't see you?" she said, emotions spilling over. "You think I don't feel it when you pull away? I've been scared too, Mark. Scared that maybe you didn't trust me enough to let me in." Her words struck him deeper than any accusation ever could. He reached for her hands, holding them tightly. "I'm sorry," he said, "for every moment I chose silence over openness, for every time I let fear speak louder than love." Kelly looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed, a soft, tearful laugh that broke the tension. "Only you," she said, shaking her head, "would turn New Year's Eve into an emotional intervention." A few nervous chuckles escaped from around the room. "But listen to me," she continued, her voice firm now. "We're not perfect. We never were. And I don't need you to be unbreakable. I need you to be real." Mark exhaled, a breath he felt he'd been holding for years. "I can do that," he said. "I want to do that." She pulled him into an embrace, resting her forehead against his. Fireworks continued to explode outside, but inside, something quieter and more profound was happening. Friends discreetly retreated, leaving the couple alone in the soft glow of the room. Mark and Kelly sat together on the couch, the echoes of celebration fading into the background. "You know," Kelly said after a moment, "people think love is about grand gestures, but sometimes it's just about sitting in the dark and telling the truth." Mark smiled faintly. "I wish I'd learned that sooner." "Maybe you learned it exactly when you needed to," she replied. The minutes after midnight stretched on, filled with reflection rather than revelry. Mark felt lighter, as if shedding a heavy coat he hadn't realized he was wearing. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to be vulnerable without fear of judgment. "I don't want us to become a headline. I don't want this to be something people twist into drama." Kelly nodded. "Then it won't be. This is ours, not theirs." She leaned back, intertwining her fingers with his. "But promise me something. Anything. Promise that when you're afraid," she said, "you'll tell me, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels messy." "I promise," he said, without hesitation. Outside, the city continued to celebrate. Inside, the new year began not with confetti or cheers, but with honesty and renewal. As dawn approached, Mark stood by the window again, watching the sky lighten. Kelly joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you regret saying it?" He shook his head. "No, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and the most necessary." She smiled softly. "Then maybe this New Year's Eve didn't take a dark turn after all." He considered that, watching the first hint of morning break through the night. Maybe it just turned honest. They stood together, quietly, as the world moved forward into another year, changed not by spectacle, but by a confession that transformed fear into connection. And in that fragile, powerful moment, Mark knew that the darkest turns sometimes lead to the clearest light.